Well, hello everyone. This is DC with the DC Capstone Report. It's great to be back another week this week with the podcast on Alabama football. This week in the podcast, in the first segment, we're going to review the Florida game, the SEC championship game. In the second segment, we're going to take a look at the standout players of the game against Florida. And then in the third and final segment, we're going to preview the upcoming game for the college football playoff semifinal against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. You're listening to the DC Capstone Report. The DC Capstone Report is featured each Tuesday morning on the Martin Houston Show at Tide 100.9. You can listen live at Tide100.9.com. Well, it's glad to be back with you for another podcast on Alabama football. This is DC with the DC Capstone Report. Lance Shores and I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. Yes, this is Christmas week, December 21st. Soon be celebrating the birth of our Savior. And I just want to tell you that Lance and I really appreciate it. This time of year, we always think about what we're thankful for and what we've looked back on a great year. And Lance and I are really appreciative of everyone who listens to our podcast each and every week. So, again, Merry Christmas from Lance and I. We hope you have a great week celebrating the birth of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And that is the reason for Christmas. That's why we celebrate. And I always say you can't have Christmas without Christ. So just really appreciate each and every one of you listening in to us. And Merry Christmas from the DC Capstone Report and from Lance and I. Well, today in this first segment, we're going to look and review the SEC championship game against the Florida Gators. Alabama winning that game, and I predicted a blowout, 48-14, and that's not the way it turned out. It turned out to be a 52-46 victory for the Alabama Crimson Tide. My prediction was really good in the first half because we really did a good job scoring 35 points to their 17 points in the first half. But Florida made some adjustments. And let's give Florida credit where their credit's due. They made some adjustments in the second half and came out in that second half and outscored us in the third quarter 14-0 and really cut the game a little closer. But look at that matchup. Alabama really looked like they were prepared offensively for this game. We scored 52 points, did a really good job. And it looked like in the first half we were prepared defensively, but somehow in the second half, the Florida adjustments really kind of really exposed us on our defensive secondary a little bit. And we made some uncanny errors. We had errors and mistakes. I said we need to play mistake-free football, and we let Florida stay on the field on third down too many times for our mistakes that we made in penalties on defense and the mistakes we made in coverages. A couple of times the plays that Florida made were just great throws and great catches, and those things are 50-50 balls where it's going to be really hard for us to win every one of those. So that was kind of exposed. But I think overall we played a great game on offense and a fair game on defense. At least it's something that we can build upon. And I really think that Coach Saban really hit the nail on the head when he said after the game, we needed a game like this. We needed a close game. Maybe it'll do us well down the road. So now Alabama finishes the season 11-0 for a full SEC games, played 11 SEC games and went through it 11-0. No other team in football history, in SEC history, has ever won 11 SEC games in one season, playing back-to-back games. So Alabama was really well prepared for this game, I thought, on offense. I thought we came out and really did what we talked about last week, and that is establish the running game. And Florida didn't really have an answer for our running game or our passing game in this game. So our offense was really, really good. I think when we get to our standout players of the game, you'll find out that it revolved really around three good offensive players. Another key is I think we had other players that played around them on offensive line that really did a good job playing, and that we had people who didn't give up. The play that I want to call everyone's attention to as we review this Florida game is, and that play in the first quarter where John Mechie didn't give up. I told Martin Houston this week when I was talking to him after the game that I think that'll be the play that every high school coach will put on the reel to show their players you don't give up on the play. You all remember the play. Alabama makes a great play. It looks like we're going to have a completion to our to our tight end, and there safety really made a great play on the ball and really took the ball away from our tight end. But John Mechie never gave up on the play, and he made probably one of the most explosive tackles I've ever seen, and really dislodged the ball, and we recover the fumble, and we go on to save that series, and we score on that. It makes a big difference in the first quarter. And so I think it was a turning point in the game. I really believe that gave us the ability to go up 35-17 based on that one play. That is a play that you show to not give up on. And so I think John Mechie needs to get a shout out in this recap because he did such a good job on that one play. I think it made a turning point in the first half. The other thing I think that was significant in this game is the loss of Landon Dickerson. You can't review this Florida game and talk about it without losing Landon Dickerson late in the game on that last touchdown pass that kind of sealed the deal. Landon Dickerson had a significant knee injury. Now, I could tell from when it happened that he felt like it was a significant injury. They confirmed it later on with the MRI, and he's out for the season. But he's had 2 knee injuries before where he's blown out his knees when he was at Florida State. And he kind of knew what had happened. But I think that is a big blow to this offensive line. I think 3 reasons. One is he's a great player. I think he does a great job of playing on the offensive line. Has really solidified this offensive line this year from the center position. 2 is he makes all the play calls and the reads for the offensive line. And 3 is he is an emotional leader on this team. And you could tell from this game how much everyone loved him. I don't believe I've ever seen every player come out to the cart as he was being carried off the field to check on him or to say a word of encouragement to him. So he's a big part of this team. Where we go next is that Chris Owens, a senior, well-versed in the Alabama process. He's going to have to step up. He's been that next player, that 6th man, if you will, that comes in and plays at any position. He's able to play all positions across the line of scrimmage. And I think Chris Owens comes in. He's going to anchor that. He'll be a really good fill-in for Landon Dickerson. I just don't think he'll be able to bring the same emotion that Landon Dickerson brings to the team. I think that's going to have to come from others like Alex Leatherwood. It's going to have to come from Deonta Brown. They're going to have to bring that emotion that Landon Dickerson brings to the game. So I look forward to seeing if they can step up to the plate in that. Where we go after that is Darren Delacourt is your next center. He's a young player that's come along. I think he's really pushed. If it wouldn't have been for Landon Dickerson having been such a great player, he would have pushed Landon Dickerson this year. So I think that we'll come out of this pretty well. We'll see how Chris Owens is able to come in and anchor that center position. We'll see if the other players can step up and bring the emotion and leadership that they need to bring, in, like Deonta Brown and Alex Leatherwood, and see if Darren Delacourt can come in and give Chris Owens a breather if need be. So can't afford any more injuries on that offensive line for these next 2 games, and we'll be able to continue to play and play well. So overall, I think we did great on offense. On defense, I think you saw some frustration in the lack of finishing in this game. I think Coach Saban, you saw him chewing out Pete Golding on the sideline. I think we got a really good push up front. So I think our weakness was in the linebackers, in our back end. Our linebackers, I think Dylan Moses had a tough game covered in out of the backfield. I think our wide receivers had a hard time matching up against that. Our defensive backs had a hard time matching up against the athletic wide receivers and that Florida had. But let's give Florida credit. They had some great players. Tony and Pitts and Kyle Trask throwing the ball, and they had some other good players around them. Very good athletes. Did a great job. So I think they played well, and it kind of exposes some areas. We had some ways to improve. But I think the one good thing was that push up front. We got to push up front in defense, and it really increased our sack total. I think our sacks in this game were 5. We had 5 total sacks in this game, so I was really impressed with that. And I thought Christian Harris played a really good game. Coming off a shoulder injury, still favoring that shoulder, I think, on one of the hits we saw. But he really played a really good game, so I was glad to see him step up and play. So overall, great win for Alabama, SEC champions, 11-0, and catapults us into the college football playoff with the number 1 seed. Well, in the second segment here, we're going to take a look at our standout players of the game against Florida. And let's start on offense. I think on offense, you know who my players have to be. They have to be the big 3, as I call them. And since Jalen Waddle's gone down, we've had a 3-headed monster on our offense that's really done a great job. I think Mac Jones, it starts with him. I think he had the ability to go into this game and show what he had against Kyle Trask in the Heisman Trophy candidate. And I think he did just that. He was 33 of 43 for 418 yards passing with 5 touchdowns and that 1 interception that was taken away from the tight end that I talked about earlier. It could have been a big play on theirs, but because of John Mitchell not getting up on the play, it ended up being a big play for us. So 33 of 43, 418 yards, 5 touchdowns. I think he did everything he could in this game to solidify his Heisman Trophy candidacy. And I think he actually outdid Kyle Trask and beats him. The only thing competition he has, I think, comes from people on his own team. Will they compete for him to get the trophy, and also will they compete to bring votes away from him? So it remains to be seen who wins. But, my second standout player of the game was Najee Harris. Najee Harris had one of his best games ever as a player at the University of Alabama. He had 31 carries for 178 yards and 2 touchdowns rushing. And then he had 5 receptions for 3 touchdowns receiving the ball. So his 5 touchdowns in this game, 3 receiving, 2 rushing, and to be able to run the ball like he did for almost a 6-yard average every time he carried the ball was really stellar. I think this was his best game ever. They didn't have an answer for him covering him out of the backfield or stopping the run. And then the third one in that 3 cog of standout offensive players for Alabama is Devonta Smith. Devonta Smith had 15 catches for 184 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. So I think he did a stellar performance. I think all 3 of those, this may be the first time since Ohio State, when Ohio State back in the day had, I think John Capoletti won the Heisman Trophy, and then he had 3 players from Ohio State that gained votes in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place. So this may be a year where that happens again, where Najee Harris and Devonta Smith and Mac Jones take votes away from each other. But I think it remains to be seen. Whoever wins the Heisman Trophy, I think Alabama's players will be in the mix going down. So our offensive players of the game were Mac Jones, Najee Harris, and Devonta Smith. On the defensive side of the ball, I thought we played well at times. And so these 3 players were my standout players of the game. And it come no shock, they come from that front 7. If you will. Will Anderson Jr. is my first defensive standout player of the game. Had a fantastic game for Alabama. He had 5 tackles and 1 assist, and 2 of those were sacks. He really showed his athleticism and his quickness for a freshman, and just really did a good job of getting there. And right behind him is the other linebacker mate, Christopher Allen. Christopher Allen had 4 tackles and 1 assist and 1 sack. So between the 2 outside rushers, they had 3 sacks in this game, and I thought they did a really good job of keeping Kyle Trask in the pocket. Did a good job of sacking him when he took too long to get the ball out. So Will Anderson Jr. and Christian Harris Christopher Allen did a great job. And my third standout player of the game has to be Christian Harris. Came back from a really tough shoulder injury for a linebacker to have, and then came back in the game against Arkansas. Came back in this game still with a lot of apparatus on his shoulder, and he was favoring at times, but really played a whale of a game. He had 2 tackles and 1 assist, but 2 of the tackles that he had were sacks, where he came in and sacked Kyle Trask. And so my standout players of the game on defense are Will Anderson Jr., Christian Harris, and Christopher Allen. Well, here in the third and final segment, this week we're gonna look at the upcoming game, the college football playoff semifinal against Notre Dame, an Alabama versus Notre Dame matchup. It's one of those stellar performances that we see go down in history with the matchups against Alabama and Notre Dame. Lately, Alabama's had the upper hand, but Notre Dame has a good team this year coming into this. This year they kind of faltered against their matchup against Clemson. But now they get the chance to redeem themselves and play against the number 1 team in the nation. This game was really originally going to be played in California, the Rose Bowl, but it's had to be moved because of the COVID virus to a different venue. And it happened to be moved to a venue that Alabama is very familiar in playing with, and that is Jerry World out in Arlington, Texas. They get to go play there where they've had some really good success. And so I think Alabama plays well on turf. I think this will be a great game for Alabama to match up. And I believe if you look at this, you've got to start with Alabama's offense. The number 1 thing, and I think I've said it in most every game we've previewed here, is Alabama has to play mistake-free football. I believe in this game on offense, if we play mistake-free football, we'll have an opportunity to really take advantage of some matchups with our athletic players against the Notre Dame secondary and linebackers. So I look for Devonta Smith to have a big game against Notre Dame. I look for Najee Harris to have a big game and Mac Jones to have a big game offensively. I think we need to run the ball to set up the pass. And I believe that we can do that against Notre Dame. In some films I've watched, it looks like Notre Dame bites on the play-action pass really well. So I think Mac Jones does a good job of faking the ball on those play-action passes. So look for them to try to take away a little bit from for Devonta Smith, but I think he can always make a difference anytime he's around the ball. But I think Alabama's going to look to get John Mechie involved more and Jaleel Billingsley involved more. Jaleel Billingsley didn't get involved as much on the offensive side of the ball as he in this last game against Florida. And I believe if he can become more of a pass catcher in this game against Notre Dame, and we utilize Najee Harris out of the backfield like we did against Florida, then it really sets us up to have a really good game against Notre Dame. Folks, this is the next game on our schedule. It is a college football playoff game. It's on New Year's Day. All those things are true. But if Alabama plays within themselves and continues the process that they've started this year has something to be very special. But if they don't win this game, they don't get a chance to play for the championship. So I believe Alabama will be honed in, zeroed in, and looking for this game. I don't think they're going to have a letdown against playing Notre Dame. And I think on offense, they're going to come out and play a really, really good game. On defense, it looks like on defense, we're going to have to make some adjustments. We're going to have to learn from our mistakes. When I say play mistake-free football, I mean on both sides of the ball. We almost let Florida back in the game, making silly mistakes on penalties and making some silly mistakes on coverages, losing sight of the ball, not being in the right position at the right time, making the wrong angles on tackles. So I think we're really going to have to clean up a lot of that in this game. But I think that game against Florida is a good opportunity for Coach Saban to get on this defense and help them, give them encouragement to improve themselves. They've improved up to every game to this point, and Florida seemed to be a little setback. But maybe it was just what we needed at just the right time. I think it gives Coach Saban an opportunity to get into the defensive side of the ball and look at some schemes, look at how to attack this Notre Dame team. Now, Notre Dame has a quarterback in Ian Book that can throw the ball well and he can run the ball well. It's going to be imperative on our defensive side of the ball that we keep Ian Book in the pocket. I think if we can keep him in the pocket and don't let him extend plays and we can get off the field on third downs, then we're going to have a really good time stopping this team. I think Georgia, we might take a look at Georgia's playbook on how they were able to beat Notre Dame when they played them a year or two ago. If we can be able to keep Ian Book in the pocket and stop Notre Dame's running game and force them to throw the ball, I think we'll have an opportunity to increase our pass rush in this game. It's gotten better every game up until now. And if we can get some sacks on him, get some hits on him early, then I believe it'll make it easier for our back end to defend his passes. I believe Kyle Trask is a better quarterback. I believe Kyle Trask has a better deep ball, and I think he can put the ball in tighter spaces. So I really believe that if we can rattle Ian Book in this game, if we can get him to stay in the pocket, not extend plays on third down, our defense can really have a good game against Notre Dame. And I am predicting another blowout in this game. I think Alabama comes into this game really, really looking to win this game to get to that championship game, to be undefeated when they go into the championship game and have a chance to be an undefeated national champion again. But you can't do that looking ahead. You can't do that and not focusing on where you are. I think Alabama comes into this game. Coach Saban has them in the right mind frame. They're playing on New Year's Day in Jerry World there in front of a national television audience with the opportunity to win that game and move on to the national championship game. I believe Alabama does it. They show up big. The offense does a great job of making big plays, and our defense does a good job of keeping Ian Book in the pocket. We have a lot of sacks. We have a couple of turnovers, and I believe Alabama comes out of this game with a big victory And I believe Alabama wins it. Alabama wins this game over Notre Dame 52-17. Alabama 52, Notre Dame 17. Well, that's all we have today for the DC Capstone Report. Again, Lance and I wish you all a Merry Christmas. I hope that each and every one of you know the reason that we celebrate this season, and that reason is the birth of our Savior, Jesus Christ. So from Lance Shores and myself, from the DC Capstone Report, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a big Roll Tide.